I have to prove more just to get that same equal shot. I even had an investor in Silicon Valley tell me, if you were white and in Silicon Valley, he told me this to my face. If you were white and in Silicon Valley, you would raise $100 million by now. You're going after a $40 billion market, and there's not really much like keeping you from going after it. So there's no regulation, right? Like your license, you've done all the hard work. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, wow, like you just told me you're racist. Right? Like that's basically what you just told me. Why don't you give me $100 million?
The startup investment landscape is changing, and world-class companies are being built outside of Silicon Valley. We find them, talk with them, and discuss the upside of investing in them. Welcome to Upside.
Hello. Welcome to the Upside Podcast, where we're finding upside outside of Silicon Valley. I'm Eric Hornung, and I'm accompanied by my co-host, Mr. Breaking into the Charts himself, Jay Klaus. Jay, how's it going, man? Congratulations, we got number one on Breaker.
I love it. I love that you're congratulating yourself by congratulating me. You're congratulating us.
See, it's nice because I can always just say that you did it, and it makes me feel good about myself because we're in this together. But it's like a way to give compliments that I don't have to really think about feeling narcissistic.
Yeah, that works. Excited to break the number one trending podcast on Breaker yesterday. Breaker is a social podcasting app. Eric, how do you describe Breaker to your friends?
I think it's a better way to listen to podcasts. I've used Overcast. I've used Apple iTunes. I really like the functionalities of Breaker, and I think that there's going to be some really cool features getting added as they continue to develop, because they're thinking with the listener first, not the podcaster first. So it's a great way to listen to podcasts.
Yeah, early in the life of Breaker, YC company, YC 17?
15, 16, 17, yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so pretty early on for the life of Breaker, but it's fun to see the Upside podcast up there with the likes of Revisionist History and the Meb Faber Show and The Daily by the New York Times.
And we jumped right over Andreessen Horowitz, so take that, A16Z. We're coming for you.
We're coming.
Not really. Please don't take that as a threat. So Jay, why are we here? What are we doing here at Upside?
Well, the chart-topping Upside podcast is here to highlight entrepreneurship outside of Silicon Valley. We talk to founders of startup companies that we believe are not only as intelligent and opportunity-seeking as their Valley counterparts, but in a lot of cases even more resilient, which seems to be the case with our guest today, Clarence Bethea, which we'll get to in a minute. So Eric, how does the flow and format of our podcast work?
Well, we're going to break our podcast down into 3 steps. First, we're going to look at the market as a whole and kind of talk about some research that we did independently. Second, we're going to dive into an interview with Clarence, as Jay just alluded to. And then third, we're going to do a verbal deal memo / debrief. We'll get to that a little bit later, and we'll walk you through more about why we're doing that when we get to the end. So Jay, you mentioned we're talking to Clarence. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit. Clarence Bethea is our guest today. He is the founder and CEO of Upsie, not to be confused with Upside, though it is just one letter difference. Upsie is a mobile app platform that provides you an easier and better way to protect your stuff. You get the same warranties and coverage offered by other companies, but at an affordable price. It is reimagining the way warranties are done for electronics and appliances.
When you were doing your research, what did you find in terms of market size?
So my data came from an article that I believe was in the Minneapolis Star Tribune. Is that an article, I believe?
That sounds about right.
Put the market at $40 billion for the warranties industry, of what they were looking at. Did you have something similar?
Yeah, so I used a source called Warranty Week. They seem to be an authority on warranties. Authority on warranties.
I like it.
Upside Upsie. We do one rap chat episode, and all of a sudden we're just spitting lyrics on the show. Anyway, I saw the same. It's about $40 million, 44 if you count jewelry or something like that. And when you break it down, about 20% of that is in the mobile phones, 15% is in consumer electronics, 10% is in PC, OEM, and 3.4% is in appliances. And I think that covers the Upsie spectrum.
And you're saying your math adds up to somewhere between $40 and $44 billion using that?
So the entire warranty market, which includes vehicle service contracts, is somewhere in the 40 to 44 million range. So if you take out vehicle services and you take out jewelry and you take out furniture, you're going to pull out something like 47, almost 50% of the market. So the real market size may be something closer to a 20 to 22 million.
Billion with a B,
billion
right?
With a B, yeah.
All right, I was about to get off the show and say we got to find a bigger market. Before we get into any deeper research on Upsie and the market specifically, there are a couple things I wanted to note just as an order of housekeeping. Upsie was founded in 2014. It's based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. They've raised a little over $3 million to this point, $1.3 million in 2014 from what I saw, $1.7 million early this year in 2018, and $150,000 from a convertible note in the Techstars Retail accelerator in August of 2017.
So obviously there's some venture capitalists who see this market, this $22 billion market, and say Upsie has a really interesting pitch and a really interesting play. And I'm excited to hear more about that in the interview. But I want to kind of pivot real quick to competitors. So when we're looking at who is Upsie competing against, who'd you find?
So I think Upsie is competing against the retailers themselves in a lot of ways. From what I'm reading, they are using the same insurance companies to provide warranty coverage on these products. But the market that they're attacking is saying that these retailers are putting a drastic upcharge on top of the insurance company's rates when they sell warranties directly to consumers. I've seen numbers ranging from 100% to 900% in different places that Clarence has spoken. So the competitors in this space seem to be the traditional retailers who offer warranties now, which is one of the concerns that I'll touch on if you ask me about concerns, given that they can just kind of squeeze their own margin down if they find that they're losing. Did you find something similar?
Yeah, I believe that the OEMs, or the original equipment manufacturers, if we mention that word a few times, so that's the Apples, the Samsungs of the world, they're offering their own kind of insurance. So think about Apple Care, for example. And then you also have the retailers, so the Walmarts, the Best Buys of the world. And I was just looking at a chart about mobile phone protection plans. And between Apple Care and U.S. mobile phone companies, they make up approximately 10 of the $13 billion sold in warranties and warranty premiums between 2009 and 2017.
That's interesting. So it'll be interesting to hear if he's attacking that same kind of large segment of the warranty market, mobile phones, or if he's trying to focus on the other aspects. Something that I saw in an interview with Clarence that I really, really liked because someone just told me a quote along the same lines. He says he likes the Jeff Bezos quote of, "Your margin is my opportunity," which is pretty much core to his business model here. Something else someone told me just this past week that I really, really loved. He said, "Crumbs are bread too." Love that.
I like that a lot.
You just got to take up all the crumbs. It's still bread. It's just smaller pieces of it.
That kind of leads me into this idea of shadows. And I think you foreshadowed a little bit with your concerns earlier. But in 2008, I was surfing in Hawaii. Really cool sentence right there.
Humble brag.
It's about as cool as my life gets. I was surfing in Hawaii, and I was on Waikiki Beach, which for any surfers out there, not the greatest beach to surf on, right? Not great waves. And I was probably 100, 200 yards out in the ocean, just floating really purposelessly. And underneath me, a big shadow appeared. And I pulled my legs up on the board, and I was so scared because the first thing I thought was shark. And I looked down, and it was a giant sea turtle. And I think that when we dive into some of these interviews, we have a lot of shadows. So they could either be sharks and something that we really want to avoid, or they could be sea turtles where they're not dangerous. For me, with Upsie, it's really hard to compete just on price. Amazon is a great example, and his quotes are amazing, but it is extremely hard in the long run to compete just on price. So I want to hear about the other differentiating features which Upsie has.
Yep, I hear you. So that is going to be a recurring theme here on Upside, is talking about shadows. Are they a shark or are they a sea turtle?
We could just say turtle. We don't need to say sea turtle, you know?
But I'm with you. Competing on price is often a race to the bottom. So is Upsie triggering a race to the bottom with these retailers, or will they continue to innovate in the sort of gingerbread man fashion of catch me if you can, if you're a Evan Spiegel fan?
Did you watch another movie last night?
No. Evan Spiegel is CEO of Snapchat.
Oh, let's cut that because that's embarrassing.
Evan Spiegel, for the listeners, if you're not aware, founder and CEO of Snapchat. And when he was asked about his competitive advantage, I think pre-IPO, he basically said that innovation was his advantage, which is something we've heard on this podcast before. And that was called the gingerbread man approach by Ben Thompson, because they're just kind of running ahead as fast as they can, hoping that other people can't catch them. So is Upsie triggering something of a race to the bottom where they're just trying to lead and innovate and protect themselves that way? You ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Clarence, welcome to the show.
Man, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you. You're our first company. Oh, no, sorry. Our second company from Minneapolis. And that's exciting because it's so easy to get companies from Ohio. And we found that Minneapolis has one of the most exciting startup scenes outside of Silicon Valley. So we're glad to have you on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. You're right. Minnesota is, we're growing. It's a vibrant community. Feel super fortunate to be a part of it.
Yeah. We want to start with kind of you, the founder. Can you tell us about the history of Clarence?
Yeah, so there's nothing special about Clarence. Grew up in Decatur, Georgia, in Atlanta. I always try to, just tell the real story. I come from an abusive background. Watched my dad beat my mom for the first 15 years of my life. So, grew up doing whatever I had to do to, feed the family, put clothes on my back, make sure my brothers and sisters had what they need. So grew up, Decatur, Georgia is one of the rougher parts of the country. So grew up there. That's kind of where I cut my teeth.
Is that common with other people who were in your neighborhood or your friends? Did they have a similar experience in that part of the country?
Yeah, I think I grew up in a neighborhood where, as kids, we all were kind of going through the same thing. And we found, each other as just an opportunity to have an outlet.
How did you get out of Decatur? What was kind of the next step there?
Yeah, so I was also a pretty good basketball player. So I was all-state in Atlanta, Georgia. I was fortunate enough that coaches gave me an opportunity to get a scholarship and leave Atlanta. So my first school was in Kansas, dropped out, got kicked out. My second school was also in Kansas, got kicked out and dropped out. I just had no discipline, right? So I went right from the life I was in to hey, we want to put you in college. And we want to it was the first time I ever met a white person was in college in Kansas. Yeah. And so it was wow, there's white people in the world. That's awesome.
Thought they were just on TV.
Yeah, I thought it was just TV thing, right? I thought they don't exist really. It's like dinosaurs, right? And I just didn't have any discipline, right? So it's they put me in a situation where you have to have the ultimate discipline. I had none. And finally, one of the coaches that was in Kansas took a job in Minnesota at a D2 here up north and gave me another opportunity and said, hey, I think you can figure this out, and gave me a chance to go there. Did
you look at basketball or in sports in general as a way to get out of Georgia, or was that just sort of happenstance?
I think it just happened. I don't. To be honest with you, I don't think I had any aspiration to leave Atlanta. I just kind of went where I fell. And I was really fortunate to end up in Minnesota.
What position did you play in basketball?
Point guard.
How tall are you? We can't see because you're not standing up. So
6'3".
Okay, taller than me and Jay, probably combined.
Yeah, if we go much deeper on basketball, I'm going to quickly get over my head. Watched Game 6 of the Cavs last night and had fun doing it. But I texted a friend of mine. I'm like, did the Cavs have a point guard, or is it just LeBron too?
It's just LeBron. Just LeBron.
Nice. So this coach who you say kind of gave you a second chance and brought you up to Minnesota, what was your relationship to him like? Why did he decide to take that second chance or pull you up there?
I think we had a decent relationship. I was really, really good. And, he had a history of taking like kids that were really, really good and giving them shots. That was kind of his history. A lot of coaches wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole simply because they the word got around that I was undisciplined and, I wouldn't listen to coaches. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I think he thought like, oh, I can kind of change this. And I still went there, was undisciplined, but, him and I fought back and forth to kind of get me in line. And it was a good experience for me.
Did he change anything about you?
No, probably the real answer. No, I don't think he's changed much about me. I think I think what he did was give me an opportunity to lead the state of Atlanta and kind of see the world in a different way. I think by that time I had realized that I didn't want to go back to Atlanta because at least when I was gone, like life was decent. Like I had food to eat. I had decent friends. I didn't have to worry about like looking over my shoulder, when I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing. So I'm thankful to him for just giving me an opportunity to get out of Atlanta. And that's kind of like where I feel like he played a part in my life.
So you get to Minnesota, you graduate, you don't graduate. I'm not sure what happened there. What was next? You didn't want to go back to Atlanta.
Yeah, so I didn't want to go to Atlanta. So I don't graduate. My junior year, ended up kicking me off the team for missing an assignment, which I'm still pissed off about, to be honest with you. And so I ended up working. So I'm a big people person. A guy that I knew that played football at Bemidji State was running like a home care like for disabled adults. And so he gave me an opportunity to work for him. And I was like, hey, like I can do this full time. So I did it full time for him. And then he had a friend that ran another one. I was like, hey, why don't I just work 16 hours a day and make money? And this is up in Bemidji where, cost of living was so low. So I was working 16 hours a day every day. I loved, being around those people and just like helping them in any way I could. So I would work, afternoon shift and then the night shift, which was basically just sitting in the house, listening, for the person in the house not to get up. And I did that for, about 2 years and made a ton of money. And then I was like, hey, I really like this profession. I got a job down in Minneapolis. Somebody offered me a job to do it down here, making twice the money, just doing one job. And I was like, hey, let me move down to the cities. End up moving down to the cities, was still a knucklehead, was still just like not disciplined at all, but I was making this money and had my own apartment finally. And I felt like life was going in the right direction. And then, we just still undisciplined, still trying to figure out like who I was. Fortunately, I met a guy that had a trucking company and he was like, hey man, you can make 6 figures a year if you come work for me. And I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot. Like 6 figures, like we didn't even talk about that where I was from. Like nobody made 6 figures where I was from, right? And so he was like, hey, I can teach you how to drive. Yeah, I'm sure you guys know what a boom truck is, where they put sheetrock on the second floor. And he was like, hey, I can teach you how to do this. I can teach you how to drive these trucks. I have 4 trucks right now. Do you mind come working for me? I think you have a chance to make a lot of money. Started working for him, rode with him for about 6 months. Went and took my CDL license test, passed on the first try, and then he taught me how to do the boom. And I went from making, like $40,000 a year to like $120,000 a year, like literally overnight. And I was like, wow, like you're talking about financial freedom. This is financial freedom. And so I did whatever, every stupid young man does. I went out and tried to ball, right? Right when I was literally I was on the club and dropping like $2,000. It was just like stupid stuff that I never experienced growing up, right? And so in 2008, the market went down. Nobody was building houses anymore, so nobody needed sheetrock or stuff to go on the second floor. At that same time, I met a guy through basketball that was a former NBA player that was opening a gym. He was like, hey, you know how to talk to people. Do you want to come do sales for me? So I left the boom truck. I had built that business up from $1 million a year to over $3.5 million a year in revenue. And then the market hit. I went and worked for this guy at the gym. We went from 0 to $1.5 million in less than 8 months. And I was the only guy doing sales. But I was still like, honestly, I was still just still wondering, so to speak. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but I was still just wondering, just trying to figure out like who I was as a person. Mm-hmm. And so while I knew I could make people a lot of money, I didn't know like what was my thing that was going to take me to the next level. Fortunately, the gym that I was working at was a very expensive gym. So to train for an hour was like $60 an hour per kid. So the only people who could afford that was executives. And I don't know if you guys know this, Minnesota has the most Fortune 500 companies per capita here. So there was a lot of executives that walked through our gym. So CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, CEOs of, big private companies. We have Cargill Hill, that's the largest private company in the world. And so everybody that would come through, I would meet just unbelievable people. I didn't know who these people were, like job-wise, but I knew they had to have a lot of money to do what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So just by chance, I met this dude. I didn't know who he was, and he was coming into the gym for his kids to train. And he says, and I say to him, I said, "Hey, just so you know, like you're behind on your kid's bill because we didn't get a credit card." And I still remember it today. He walked in the office, and I'm sitting there writing up his form. I was like, "Hey, you owe us $760 for your kids for the last couple of weeks." And he pulled out a wad of money like this big. Like it was all hundreds. And a kid that comes from the hood, like when somebody has that kind of money, like you're instantly thinking, I'm like, hey man, this dude must be like a kingpin for the biggest cartel in the world. And he has a black card, so he has a black card inside of the cash, and he peels off $800. He throws it to me. He's like, hey, just give me the change when you get a chance. And he throws it on the desk, and I remember thinking like, who is this dude? Like, what is he doing? I walked out and I went to talk to the CEO at the time, and I said, who is that dude? He's like, hey man, don't worry about it. Like, he's an executive at some companies here. Well, he ended up being the future CEO of a Fortune 500 company here in town.
And did you end up having a relationship with him after this, or he just made a really pivotal impact on you with a large wad of money?
No, so he ended up about a year and a half to our relationship. So I didn't know who he was, and we still I didn't even research him at the time. And he called me and he said, hey man, like I've been watching you for a year and a half. I would love to sit down with you if you got a chance. So now I go research him and I figure out he's the COO of Best Buy at the time, and he's about to become the CEO of Best Buy. And he's like, hey, I would love to have you over. I'm gonna have my assistant call you and set up a time with you. So 2 days later, the assistant calls me and said, hey, do you have some time early next week? We want you to come over to the corporate campus. I don't know if you guys know much about Best Buy. The corporate campus is like huge. And he says, hey, he's like, hey, come over at 1 o'clock on, I think it was a Wednesday or something. I go over, he comes out. He doesn't send his assistant out to get me. He comes to get me, gives me a big hug in front of everybody. So everybody knows who he is in the lobby, right? And they're like, who is this black dude that he's hugging, right? That he's coming out here and get. Like literally, like people, you can hear them whispering. They're like, who is this dude? We walk through the campus, and every person that he meets, he knows their name. He knows their. So I'm thinking like, this dude is like the most powerful dude in consumer electronics, and he knows every person's name walking through the office.
That's awesome.
He gives the janitor $10 and was like, hey man, lunch on me today. And I'm just like, wow, this dude's like the most powerful dude in the world, and he's treating people with respect. I've never seen that before, right? That's like normally people I grew up with, when they were in power, they treated people like crap because they were in power. We go sit in the cafeteria, we sit down, and he's like, hey man, he's like, I've been watching you for a year and a half. There's something about you that I can't put my finger on. He's like, I've been doing this for 25 plus years. I've seen executives all over the country. I'm about to become CEO here. He's like, you have something that I haven't seen in all the executives that work here at our company. And he was like, I would love to mentor you. I think I could help you get to the next level. He's like, I know about your background. He's like, I know the mistakes that you made. I've already done my research. I've had our investigators look at you. Like, I know you made mistakes in your life, but I got a feeling you're going to be able to come back from those. So I'm crying. I'm a grown man. I'm 28 years old. I'm bawling. The cafeteria is looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm just like, wow, this dude who's about to become CEO of Best Buy is telling me like there's something special about me. And that was kind of the pivotal moment in my life.
That's wild. And he had investigators look at your background before this meeting.
Yep.
That's wild.
He knew everything. He knew I'd been in juvenile. He knew I'd been locked up. He knew every mistake that I already made in my life. So it was probably like the 1 in a trillion chance that a person has that I got.
I know we're going to jump into kind of what happened at Best Buy and how that gets into Upsie.
Yep.
But I just want to kind of pull back for a second. You've had, to my count, at least 4 people who've kind of stuck their neck out for you to date. Is that right? You had the 2 coaches in Kansas City, the coach in Minneapolis, and this guy from Best Buy. Almost like mentors?
So I'd probably say the last one was probably a realistic like mentor relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say the rest of them was just like I was a talented kid in basketball, so kind of didn't have any choice but to want me. I know that
Mm-hmm.
sounds like arrogant and cocky, but I was really good, and I think coaches think I can be the one to turn this kid around, and that's I don't I think when I look back now, like hindsight is 2020. I think when I look back now, like basketball was a great thing in my life, and it propelled me to new levels. And if I wouldn't have got here in Minnesota, I would have never met. Yeah, I would have never met this guy, right? So I think like God made things happen in your life, and like He kind of puts you in places so you can meet the next opportunity. The question is, are you going to be able to see it? And I feel like God put me here in Minnesota so I can meet Him, so I can do what I'm doing now.
You've put such an emphasis on the idea that you were pretty undisciplined up to this point. Is this the turning point where you started to see, okay, I'm no longer wandering, I see a path for myself, I'm going to buckle down, or am I projecting?
No, I think you're right. I think this was the point in my life where I felt like either I'm going to turn it around and be disciplined and like truly live in my purpose, or I'm gonna be a bum. And I didn't want to be a bum.
So let's walk down the purposeful route.
Yep.
You meet this guy, you're crying in his office.
Yeah.
What happened in between the two?
He says to me, if you just listen to me, I can help you become like a great businessman. I can't teach you the intangibles that you have, but I can sure help you become a better person. He's like, just listen to me. So about a few days later, I get a call from his assistant, and he's like, hey, I need you to meet me here at this address. Bring a bag because we're going to be overnight. And I'm thinking like, what? What do you want? Like, what is this place? Well, I go, and so at the time, just so I can like put context on this, I'm driving a 1998 Buick something. The passenger door got hit by a car, so you can't even get out the passenger door. And I had no air conditioning. So it's like in the middle of summer, it's 800 degrees, no air conditioning. And it's like this, I think it was like a Sebring or something like that. And I drive up to the address he tells me. It ended up being like a private jet place. And there's like Escalades and there's like Ferraris and all this stuff. And I'm driving, and I don't even want to pull in the parking lot. So I pull all the way to the back and like park like behind the last Escalade. Like the worst car in the parking lot was the Escalade, right? And I walk in with my bag, and dude comes up to me and says, hey, Mr. Bethea, we've been waiting for you. He's waiting in a jet for you. And it's like this whole like red carpet, white glove, type deal. And I'm floored, right? I'm like, oh my God, like what is happening right now? Hop on the plane, and Brian's like, hey, you ready to go? Let's do this. And I'm like, where are we going? He's like, just roll. Just sit down and let's roll. And the pilot turns around and says, hey, are you ready? He's like, yeah, let's get out of here. And literally, I had only been in a plane once at that point, and I know how long it takes to taxi and do all that work. I bet you it was 20 seconds later, we were in the air going. Like I felt like we just hopped off the ground and went in the air. And I remember sitting there like holding on, and he's like, relax. It's all good. Like, this is what happens. And we're sitting there, and like there's someone on the plane serving us fruit and vegetables and sandwiches. And I like I said, a kid that come from Atlanta that only seen that stuff on TV, I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. And we're on the plane, and while we're on the plane, he hands me a book. He's like, hey, I want you to check out this book. It's about emotional intelligence and listening to your gut. And he's like, I want you to take some time to read this. So I'm reading the book. We're talking. We land in LA. We hop off the plane, and literally, like, there's a red carpet leading to an Escalade. And I'm like, I go to grab my bag, and somebody's like, no, I got your bag. And I'm just like, huh? I can carry my own bag. It's like 2 pounds, dude. And he looks at me, he's like, hey, man, just let him do his job, right? Like, that's his job to do that. We hop in the car. We go and sit. We drive to the place. We walk into an office building, and he's meeting with Jimmy Iovine from Beats before it even happened. So Beats hadn't even hit the market yet. They were just negotiating the contract. So I'm sitting in a room with Jimmy Iovine from Beats, and I'm just sitting there listening. I am in a room with like probably the biggest dude in music right now. They're going over the whole like what's going to happen with Beats and getting into Best Buy. And I tell that story because I think what he was trying to do was give me experiences. He was trying to like let me see a whole different world that I didn't even know existed. We went from there to what's the show with the Italian guy that fixes up celebrities' cars? I always get the name of it.
Oh
It's not
gosh.
Pimp My Ride. It is West Coast Customs.
Exhibit isn't Italian, I'm pretty sure.
Right. I promise you it's not. Yeah, West Coast Customs. So we leave there and then we fly to West Coast Customs office and we spend a day at West Coast Customs looking at cars and looking at stuff. And then, we stay in this hotel where we're staying in this 6,000 square foot penthouse at the top of a deal. And it was just like all these experiences. But at the same time, we're talking business and we're talking, like, Clarence, what did you notice in that meeting? And he's just like educating me. And that happened for, about 4 or 5 years straight, where it was just like, Clarence, Steve Ballmer's coming to town. I told him about it. He wants to meet you. Yeah, at the time, Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft, we're sitting at a basketball game talking business. And it was just like amazing experiences like that for like 5 years straight. I know now, like after the fact, he was trying to give me those experiences and he was trying to give me that network. So whenever I wanted to do what I wanted to do, which ended up being Upsie today, I will understand how to do that. When we got out that trip, his assistant called and was like, hey, he got you set up with body language classes, speaking classes, because I had a real hard Southern draw because I'm from Atlanta. And I used to say shawty or lie. I used to drop a lot of words a lot. And he said, hey, like, we need to fix this. Because if you're going to do real business, you can't say shawty 800 times in a sentence. And so I just kind of went through this progression as a young man just to fix like how I spoke and how I carried myself and how I was in meetings. And obviously I would study him and how he was in meetings and how he would change the leverage in the room even when he didn't have leverage. And I think what that did was allow me I had a staffing agency before Upsie where it failed. I had raised a little bit of money, but it was like training ground. This is how you raise money. This is how you start a business. These are things you need to have in place. And again, coming from a kid that was out of Decatur, Georgia, those are not things that we were talking about as we grew up, like raising money and starting businesses. And then that led into Upsie.
So let's kind of dive into Upsie a bit. You're there for 4 to 5 years studying under this guy. You go out and you try to launch a staffing company. I think we can come back to that in a bit, but I want to go into Upsie and what is the problem that Upsie is solving?
Yeah, so I think we've all been in that moment where like you're at a Best Buy and you get to register and somebody's like, hey, can I give you this warranty for $1 bajillion, depending on the product that you're buying? And what I started to see was that because I had behind the scenes knowledge at Best Buy, that retailers were charging as high as 900% more for a warranty. So to give you an example, you're buying a new laptop and the company says, hey, for $200, we can protect that laptop for 2 years. But really a warranty only costs like $15. So that's how companies make all their margin off of this product. So for me, it was about solving a problem that was threefold. One, the price, right? Like consumers, the Fed in 2016 said that 50% of consumers can't afford if something breaks or need to be repaired over $400. This country is only getting worse on that statistic as we go. When I'm buying a new laptop that my child needs, protecting it, if I don't protect it, it costs $2,000. If it breaks, I'm done, right? I can't afford to replace it. The second problem is transparency. So if you've ever been in that situation before, you know that they're not telling you this is covered and this is not covered. It's normally, do you want to buy, yes or no? And so what we wanted to do was offer transparency right out the gate so you know before you buy. And then the third problem is, we all buy that warranty and then it goes into a shoebox or a drawer at home and we never know, what's going on with it. And then 2.5 years later, we need it and the receipt is so messed up I can't read the numbers. Or I don't even know where it's at because I got 1,000 more receipts that I bought since then. So we always say like we're making warranties more affordable, more transparent, and servicing the hell out of our customers.
Yeah, before hearing and reading into Upsie a little bit, I was trying to think when I've purchased electronics in the past, I don't think I've ever considered like a third-party warranty as an option. Like I figured, you're in that high-pressure situation with the person in front of you saying, do you want to buy this? Yes or no? This is completing your transaction right now. It feels very high pressure and like, that's your only your only time to do that. So was that something when you're at Best Buy, when did that moment click for you? When did you see, oh, you're charging 900% the margins on this? Or did you have an experience where you were buying something and you were considering buying the warranty? What was the click for you that you put those pieces together?
So the click for me, because of my relationships at the time inside of Best Buy, I had an insurance company reach out to me and said, hey, if you help us get the Best Buy business. So if you make an introduction, we'll pay you millions of dollars a year. The numbers that they threw at me was like $12 million a year. If you just help us get the contract, you don't have to do any work. We'll pay you $12 million a year. So I was like, how can you make this? I literally asked the CEO of the company, how can you pay me $12 million a year for this business? And they just taught me the business. They said, hey, these things are marked up like 900%, 1,000%. I mean, there's some that's so grotesque where you'll pay $450 for a warranty and it'll cost $5. But because of the price of the product, like they could charge that much because you think I'm buying a $2,500 product and they're charging $450. That makes sense. When really that warranty costs like $5 because they're low claims and low, the actuarial numbers are low. So that was a moment where it clicked for me. I was like, hey, we could solve these problems for consumers. It's a $40 billion industry and everybody does it the same way. Like, why can't somebody do this differently and make it a 100% consumer focused business?
And so what was the decision process for you to say, I'm going to start a business to solve this versus I'm going to take this $12 million a year and try to hook this guy up?
But I got to tell you, I wouldn't be doing this business if that had gone through because I would be making the $12 million a year. So that ended up not happening. The company ended up not wanting to move to a different company. But that motivated me more to say, you know what, like if this is not going to happen, somebody needs to solve this problem for consumers. For me, the genesis of our business has always been about the customer and solving problems for our customers. So it just felt like the stars were aligned to do this.
And where do you get that customer orientation from? Is that from your time at Best Buy, or did you develop that?
I think I am a people person. And I think if you look at my history, even from a kid, I've always been the one that wanted to help. So when I was a young kid, like if I saw another kid get bullied, I was the guy that walked in and would fight the bully, not thinking two cents about it. Like obviously now as a grown man, I can't be fighting people, but like,
especially kids. You probably don't want to be fighting kids.
Yes, yeah, I stay away from kids. But like I think it's my nature and it's in my bones to want to help people. And I think now it just looks a little bit differently than what it did when I was a young man. If you think about my history with disabled adults, that was a history of like wanting to help people. And I really enjoyed that. And I think this whole customer focus is about empowering other people, right? When you can empower other people, I think there's an opportunity for you to do good in the world and make a lot of money.
Can you walk me through the customer journey using Upsie from the point of I realize Upsie is an option while I'm going to buy something to now I'm covered by Upsie?
Yeah. So we made it really simple. So we have an app in both iOS and Android store or Google store. And then we also have a website that 85% of our customers originate on. If you have a smartphone, you go to our smartphone page, tell us the pricing tier that your phone falls into. Once we know that, you select your 2-year plan. And then it just walks you through. Tell us the brand, give us some credit card information, give us your address. And then after you buy, we ask you for information like the IMEI number on that specific phone. We ask you for the model number. We ask you for the serial number and then a copy of the receipt, which you can take a picture or you can add a PDF. Once you do that, you're done. The system will alarm us if you give us information that is not valid. But for the most part, our customers, it takes a few minutes to do. And then once you're in the system, all of your stuff uploads to your My Stuff area, which is where all of your warranties are stored. So if you need to make a claim, you literally go to your My Stuff area, you press on that warranty. There's a specific number there that's waiting for you. You press that number, you call out, you give them your name and your email address. They already have your receipt. They already have all of your information sitting there. And then you just go through the claim process.
So how do you drive traffic to your app and website, since that seems to be the gate that everyone needs to get in? What's your customer acquisition strategy?
Yep. So it's three-pronged strategy, right? So Google AdWords, so digital. We know that 87% of consumers, before they make a purchase of a product, they no longer walk into the store at Best Buy and say, I want to buy this TV. 87% of people now like price compare online and search and research and price compare to Amazon versus Target versus Best Buy. So we try to put ourselves in those moments through keywords and through really digging into like what is the hot product right now? What are people searching for? What are they price comparing? The second tier is influencer marketing. It works really well for us. So we work with top influencers around the country in tech. And we just had a really big one with Unbox Therapy where he's doing a review on the new S9 and he talks about Upsie during that review. So he's like, hey, this is S9. But don't go to Sprint or T-Mobile and pay $12 a month. You can go with Upsie for $80 for 2 years. It works really well, and because those people have an authoritative voice in the tech space, that works really well. And then we just remarket, right? You hit our link on the video, we get you into the funnel, and then we just start to push you down the funnel through ads. And then third is our referral program and word of mouth. So about 12% of our customers come from word of mouth, our referral program, what works really well. So for every dollar that we spend on our referral program, we make $10. So we really try to push people into our referral program so they can share and continue to help the company grow. So those are the three main things that we do today to get customers.
And what does your customer acquisition cost look like?
I won't say that on the podcast. What I can say is we have about a 3.5 to 1 CAC to LTV ratio.
Okay. If you get $10 for every dollar you spend on the referral program, what's the limit? What's the thing that prevents you from just throwing everything into the referral program?
Hey, we continue to scale up. So we just closed a round of funding late January, and so we continue to scale that up. So there's a lot of things that's working for us. So digital marketing was working really well. So we have a really healthy CAC to LTV. If you think about companies in the consumer space, so you think about Groupon, for instance, we have an investor that invested in them when they started, and they were growing at a 1-to-1 CAC to LTV ratio, right? And B2C today is really hard, right? Like investors look down on it because they don't think, because if your CAC to LTV is not in place, they just hate it, right? And because ours is so healthy, we try to pour more money into digital. We try to pour more money into influencer marketing. So we do campaigns, that cost $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 to really push that to our customers. So we're already pouring tons of money into those things already.
Yeah, I would imagine that the biggest hurdle is obviously getting someone in to try it the first time, because if they go in and they try it the first time and have a good experience, they would come back. Do you have any data to support, the average person has more than one device on Upsie, or what does that look like?
Totally. So we have a very strong repeat rate. 50% of our customers have already bought 2 plans or more. We have customers that have been with us less than a year that bought 8 plans or more. 33% of our customers make their second purchase within 77 days. So we can almost bank it that if we don't make our customer acquisition cost back on the first one, we're going to make it back on the second one. And then what we try to use is our data to predict, like, what is your next purchase, or what is the profitability of your next purchase. And so we have interesting stats, like we know if you buy a washer first, your next purchase is probably going to be a dryer. But we know if you protect the dryer with us first, there's a 75% chance that your next purchase is going to be a laptop, which is like one of those weird things that everybody's like, huh? How? And we're like, hey, but this is what the data says. So when you buy a dryer first with us, we're instantly putting you into the laptop pool to try to push you in that direction, because we know 3 out of 4 chance that you're going to do that.
And what is the breakdown of your different kind of segments? So you have mobile phones, laptops, washers, dryers, appliances. What's the breakdown look like at Upsie?
Yeah, so we break it down in 4 categories. Smartphones, which we call our gateway drug, because every person has a smartphone, and like gateway drugs, like you start with weed and then most people move to something else, right? So we use the same thing in our business. We say, let's get people in on the gateway drug. Is actually our lowest margin product that we sell, but it's very on purpose like that, because we know if we can solve that problem, because normally it's the most important product to customers, their smartphone, because it keeps them connected. If we can solve that problem there, then everything else they're going to come in with. So it's smartphones, and then we group all consumer electronics together. So every laptop, TVs, everything goes in one bucket. And then we have appliances. So all the appliances that you could think you could protect, down to vacuum cleaners, both large and small. And then we have lawn and garden. So grills, lawnmowers, different things like that.
And what's the product mix kind of look like at Upsie?
We're probably 50% smartphones is what we see right now. And then probably 30% is consumer electronics. And then another 15% is probably the appliances, and then 5% lawn and garden stuff.
So you mentioned making money earlier, and you mentioned margins. How does Upsie make money?
Yeah, so we make money on every product that we sell. So we make on average a 49% margin on our product across our book of business. And if you think about Upsie, you can think about us the same way you think about Lyft or Uber. They don't own a driver. They don't own a car. They just make a spiff on every time that transaction happens. And we work the same way. Every time the transaction happens, we work with an A-rated carrier. They take the liability. And so we're just kind of a marketing company, that we're just the highway that makes it happen, makes the connection happen. And our customers love that from a transparency standpoint, that when you buy a plan from us, you get an email that says, you bought this plan from X carrier, here's their number, here's their information, and then you also get a week later, you get terms and conditions directly from them. And the reason why we do that is because a lot of times in our industry, when people go away, like, so a lot of businesses come and die in our industry. What happens is so you think about Circuit City, when they died, there was $2 billion worth of warranties there that people thought just died with Circuit City. So every customer who bought a warranty thought, well, hell, like, I guess I'm done then. I guess my item's not protected. And we try to flip the script there and say, no matter what happens with Upsie, if we die, your plan is still good through the duration. And here's all that information up front.
And how does your business model differ from a competitor, maybe like Square Trade?
Yeah, so Square Trade is a huge competitor to us. We think that they're still stuck in the 90s with their business model, which is they work with retailers. So if you go into a Target or you go into Costco, Square Trade sits there, right? Most of their business comes through those transactions. And then they have an online web portal where they still charge the high prices because they can't compete against their retail partners, right? So if they did what Upsie did, now I'm competing against you, Target, and now I'm probably going to fire you if I'm Target. So that's why you see their prices online artificially higher, like the rest of the industry, because they can't compete against their partners. Now, I was going to say from a business model standpoint, we work very similar. What we're doing is trying to cut out the margins and offer more transparency and offer better service in an industry that's never had those three things up front.
Can you play the script forward some number of years? Upsie is just crushing this market and becoming one of the preferred vendors of warranties. What happens when a Target or a Best Buy or these major retailers decide to pull their own margins down on these products?
Yeah, so that's the great thing about our industry. I would love to use Best Buy as an example, right? Because they're the largest seller of warranties in consumer electronics in the world. So if you think about it, they have an attachment rate. We'll make up a number here. Let's say 10% at the register. So 10% of consumers say yes at the register. They do well over $1 billion. To price match Upsie, they would literally need to drop their prices like 90%, like some crazy number. There's no way from a mathematical standpoint that even if they price match us, they could make that $1 billion back. So from a math standpoint, they could never like price match us, which is why they don't do it today. Also, the market is in this place where Best Buy doesn't make much money on the product. They make all of their margin on the service. And so unless they're willing to take a hit on the margin, which would then take a hit on their stock, they're just not willing to come down to us. So to move out 5 years, let's say Upsie's crushing the market, we think we're an acquisition target, right? Like, because if you're Best Buy, you also have to tell that story. Well, why have you been screwing me for 4 years? Like, why now? Because of Upsie? I don't think they want to tell that story, right? Which is why they're not telling that story today. And they're doing, a lot of, get 10% off. Well, that doesn't solve the problem for consumers. So we think in 3 to 5 years, the story is either you acquire us or you got to eat all of that margin. And I just don't think they're willing to do that.
Sounds very Amazonian.
Amazon-ish.
So what about like a Square Trade or some new competitor that comes in and says, I don't have that baggage that Best Buy has. I'm just going to take the same model and do the same thing. What prevents them from doing that, or what protects you there?
Right. So Square Trade is in the same position. So most of their business comes from retailers. So they can't control what margin the retailers make. The retailer's going to make what they want to make, right? So unless, again, that retailer is willing to cut their own throat a little bit, I just don't see that happening, right?
I think Jay's looking maybe more at something like a pure copycat of Upsie.
Yeah, totally. So this is a great thing about an industry. If you think about all the knowledge and the backing and everything I had going into it, there's been people who, like, I know without a doubt has called our carrier and been like, hey, we like what Upsie is doing. Do you mind partnering with us? So first thing I did was get our carrier under a 5-year exclusive so they can work with another Upsie if they wanted to. The second thing is it took 3.5 years. I went and talked to all of the major carriers who work with all of the companies. And the reason why they didn't want to work with us, because they're like, hey, I'm doing $400 million with this retailer, and you want me to partner with you to disrupt them? You bring me $400 million first, and then we can talk about that. So the market, there's only a small number of players that can do this in the first place. And when you think about those guys already working with big retailers, and then if you're a small company, startup company like us, and if you don't know this industry backwards and forwards and understand the players, understand who's doing what, like that's why you see certain companies, I won't name any names because I don't want, like, I'm not the bashing dude, but there's certain companies who's trying to get out of the industry that's like been in Europe and been other places, and they still haven't walked into the United States because they can't get a carrier to back the liability. Because if you don't know what you're doing from a loss ratio standpoint, like that was a great portion that I had. I got to understand the business at a granular level. So I just wasn't a startup guy saying, well, let's do this. I was a guy that actually knew the business. So when I walked into those rooms, I was like, look, guys, I understand how important loss ratio is. And I understand where it needs to be for you to feel comfortable to even do business with me. Like that knowledge and then just my bulldog attitude, we got that opportunity. But it's really hard for companies. Like literally, I bet you I can name 10 companies right now who I know have tried to get into our business, and like a carrier wouldn't partner with them because they're either working with a retailer or we have them under lock and key.
What I'm curious about the product itself, when I go into the Upsie app and I'm saying my phone is under this price point, it's this model, is that available in real time from some like API from the carrier, or are you having to pull down rates from them on some period of time and update that?
Yeah, so we partner with the carrier and then we pull their rates from them, and every rate that you see is locked in for 6 months. And then depending on how loss ratio go, then we can negotiate change. So we actually just had a price reduction like 6 months ago across our products because our loss ratio has been so positive. So that's kind of reviewed on an every 6 months deal, and then it's fed into our system, and then you see it in real time.
For the listeners, can you explain what a loss ratio is?
So it is the for every dollar that goes in to make a claim, they expect a certain amount of that to come out, right, for claims, right? So we make our money, that comes to us. Then we send our money, the carrier money, their premium to them. They take a large portion of that and put it into a big bucket. And then let's say there's $30 in there. They expect $29.99 to come out for claim after they take their portion. So our loss ratio is how much of this bucket is coming out. So what percentage of that is coming out? You have a percentage.
And what is like a fantastic top of the line, over the top, amazing loss ratio?
So I'm gonna give you a different answer to that. The industry expects for every dollar to go in, 98 cents to come out over time, right? So like you continue to sell plans, more money goes into it, but they expect over time for that, because remember, they're taking this money, they're floating it in the market, they're making 3 to 5% off of it. So they make money off that and a fee that they charge on a warranty. Today, Upsie is running at about 27% loss ratio. So which means every dollar that goes in, only 27 cents is coming out, which means they have more money to float and make more money off of over time.
So play this forward 5 years from now. I'm going to future cast again.
I'm rich.
I'm rich. I've been acquired. I have made it. I'm back on my own private plane mentoring somebody else. Is Upsie still playing purely in warranties, or do you see the data that you guys have aggregated based on correlating these purchases as something that can help push products and sell products, or is there something else entirely?
Totally. So I think the data that we use to empower our customers is really important, right? But I'm also super sensitive about the data that we know, because we know so much personal stuff about people and what's in their homes. And with everything that's going on in this country, like I'm really focused on making sure that we're using things to help our customers and not to enrich ourselves. And I don't believe like you have to be nasty and dirty with people's data in order to improve your business. So the data portion, while we know there's a ton of data there, like we use it to improve our customers' lives. Where we think Upsie, when we look out 3 years from now, you're going to start seeing some of this towards the end of 2018. Like we think Upsie should be like everything protection in your life. So which means not only the consumer electronics and appliances and smartphones, but when you go on a trip and you rent a car and they want $17.99 a day to protect, the Land Rover that I'm sure you're protecting in New York, why should you pay that? That insurance costs $1 a day. So we want to charge you $5.99 a day, and we want to be a part of that transaction. If you're, buying a plane ticket, instead of paying Delta that huge price that they charge you at the end, like, hey, do you want to protect this trip for, $100 for a $700 ticket, and insurance really doesn't cover anything? Like, we should be the company that you come to and say, hey, I just bought a $700 Delta ticket. Hey, for $20, you can protect that. And if something happens to your flight, we're going to reimburse you. That's who Upsie should be to customers. You think about going and buying a car at a car dealership, and they walk you in the room and they take you through all auto warranty spill and they charge you $2,000 to protect your car, we should be giving you that same warranty for $500, right? So we feel like Upsie is moving into this, everything in your life, we're going to protect for you. And we think that's the most realistic path for us. We want to be, no matter what you're doing and you need protection, you're going to come to Upsie to do that.
As someone who flies a lot and has had to pay his fair share of change fees, I would love if there was a better alternative than the Delta current protection out there, because I never buy it. It's too expensive and it doesn't actually work a lot of the times. So
Right.
That would be great. Looking at your business, you mentioned all these kind of new verticals, I'll call them. What are some of the KPIs that you track very closely at Upsie besides loss ratio?
Yeah, so CAC to LTV is really important to us. We have a running cohort analysis that runs every week and every month. So it's for us to understand like what our customers are doing. So it's really important for them to obviously to buy from us. But I need to be knowing like, what are you purchasing next? How long is it taking you to purchase? How long from account creation to purchase are you doing with us? Because that really informs us about our ads. Like, how quickly can we get you to create an account versus buying a product? So, KPIs is always behind purchase, and then how long do you purchase, from the first time to purchase your second one, and then how long from the second one to purchase your third one. So we know, it takes about 7 to 7 days to get you into your second one. Well, it takes half of that time to get you into your third one. So like we continue to try to figure out like, how do we shorten those windows, when you're making purchase with us, and also what's happening between that second and third purchase that we could use to get you between 0 to 1 to move that up, from 7 to 7 days to 25 days.
And I kind of want to transfer over to like market size, right?
Yep.
So you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that it's around $40 billion. Is that, if we assume that that's at something like a 500% premium to what we were talking about earlier, that means the market's actually much smaller for Upsie? Or does it actually mean that the market's much bigger because people just aren't buying as frequently? What kind of thoughts do you have on that?
Yeah, so the average at a retailer is a 5% conversion rate at the register for warranties. So we think while this industry is a $40 billion bloated industry, we actually think the industry should be $80 billion, $100 billion, because if you lower the price and you lower the barrier, more people buy, the industry becomes bigger, and we become a more valuable player. So I think it's a little bit of both, actually. I think the market is probably a little bit smaller than what we think it is, or what the industry says it is, but I actually think there's more opportunity there because of moving the price down for customers.
You kind of got to trim the pie before you grow it.
Totally.
Do you have any data from customers that said, I would not have bought a warranty if not for Upsie?
Yeah, so we have this thing called a feedback loop inside of our purchase process where people can tell us like how they heard about us, and then we just allow them to give us just plain feedback. About 59% of our customers do it today, so we get a lot of feedback from our customers, and we hear that pretty often. Like, hey, I've never bought a warranty before, but your price, it turned it from should I to I would be stupid if I didn't, right? Like if you think about the new S9 that just came out, it's between $750 and $950, depending on which one you get. So if I got a $900 phone and you want $12 a month, you just start doing the math. Well, that's about $264 over 2 years. Then you want a $200 deductible if you're Sprint or AT&T. I'm like, God, I could buy that phone on the market for that much money, right? But when you talk about, $80 for 2 years with a $75 deductible, you're about at $155. You're like, well, for $155, I get a $900 phone. That makes sense, right? So we hear that pretty often from customers. Like, it would just, if I didn't do it, I would feel stupid. To fix a cracked screen on an S9 today is almost $400 today.
Can you ballpark pretty often for how often you hear that out of like 10 people who give you a feedback on the feedback loop?
I'll probably say in our business, we probably hit that 25% of the time.
What are your personal, like, big, hairy, audacious goals for Upsie in the next 3 to 5 years?
Man, look, I think that we are running quickly towards this problem with consumers still wanting to buy the things that they love, but not being able to afford them, right? And you see it in different verticals. There's a company called Joy Mode. This guy who was the CEO and founder of Clout started Jomo, where he feels like people are starting to not want to have ownership. So it's like, I want to play Xbox. I can rent the Xbox from him, for $1 a day or whatever, and then give it back to him when I'm done playing it, right? And I think we're starting to move into this vertical where people are not wanting to own stuff, and they only wanting to own the stuff that have like tremendous meaning to them. So I'll give you an example. Insurance companies right now, and I actually talked to an insurance exec who told me this. He said, Clarence, we are seeing customers, the millennials and the next generation saying, I'm not going to buy auto insurance because I take Uber everywhere I go. I'm not going to buy renter insurance because I just don't care. I think my place is never going to burn down, right? Or I hop Airbnb around the country. I don't care. But what they care about more than anything is that $900 smartphone, that $2,000 laptop, that $500 tablet, these things that keep them connected. I'm sure you both have you ever gone a day without your smartphone?
It's amazing.
Can't remember one.
It is. But it is, I've done it. It is the most terrible feeling in the world. Like literally, I felt like my leg was gone. It's that important to my life. And so these next couple of generations, they care nothing about like that other stuff. But the things that keep them connected, they want to have, even if they can't afford them, right? So we think that we play an awesome part in that. Like, you can afford these things, and you can afford to protect them too. And we're going to keep you connected. And even now, when we look at our business, we're moving from this like break fix model, like just like, hey, scaring you into buying from us because you might like break your phone and not have it. We actually think the most powerful thing is, like, when you break your phone, it's not the event of breaking your phone that has you ticked off. It's actually, man, I'm missing out on text from my buddy, right? Like, Jay's texting me and I'm missing this, right? Or Jay just posted something on Facebook and I'm missing it, right? Because I can't see it anymore because I don't have my device. So, like, when we look out for Upsie and when you talk about these goals, we want to be the company that, like, empowering people to stay connected. And if we can do that by serving people this way, I think we did something cool. And so, like, when you talk about my goals, like money is cool, but that don't wake me up every day, right? Like, money doesn't wake me up because I know, like, that's like water in your hand. Like, you could lose it just as quickly as you can have it. What's powerful is watching your customers get their phone fixed and saying thank you because you did it quickly, you did it efficiently, and it didn't take an arm and a leg to do.
I think this is a good segue. There are a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about being a founder in the Midwest. And on the note of customer experience, there was an article in Fast Company with the headline something like, customers love this company's product. Where's the love from investors?
Yep.
Is that a factor of being a minority founder or a founder in the Midwest? What do you attribute that fundraising reality you had to?
I probably think it's a little bit of both. I would say 80% being a Black founder, and then 20% being in the Midwest. Because the Midwest is actually, if you look across the whole Midwest, like, we're growing, right? Like, investors are starting to recognize that there are great founders and great companies being built with lower costs of living, lower labor costs. Like, the Midwest is to me is becoming that place where you want to go to build a company. But I think being a Black founder has been one of the most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding things that I've been able to do.
Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you guys get the great pleasure of being white guys, and that's awesome.
Pretty nice.
It's pretty cool, right? I think as a diverse founder, I don't get the benefit of the doubt maybe as much as you do, right? So, like, I have to prove more. I have to understand my numbers more. I have to prove more just to get that same equal shot. I even had an investor in Silicon Valley tell me, if you were white and in Silicon Valley, he told me this to my face. If you were white and in Silicon Valley, you would raise $100 million by now. You're going after a $40 billion market, and there's not really much like keeping you from going after it. So there's no regulation, right? Like, your license, you've done all the hard work. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, wow, like, you just told me you're racist, right? Like, that's basically what you just told me. Why don't you give me $100 million? So I think just being a diverse founder is tough. But I also think the opportunity is, like, when I did Techstars with you guys, I think you guys know Vibe, right? Like, like, the Vibe guys are awesome. I was in the class with those guys, and I think I got a chance to prove that I was not just as good, but I was probably better than all the founders that they were meeting around the country. And I think that propelled me to the next level where people, my joke is, man, like after I came out of Techstars, I felt like a 22-year-old white boy. It was awesome. Like it was so cool. I was just like, wow, like this investor actually cares, right? This is so cool. And I think that's what Techstars did for me personally and for our company.
So did that article in Fast Company, did that help your efforts at fundraising or did that hurt them?
It was perfect timing, right? It's like, I think what it did was it put out my past, it put it out right in front of everybody. So you can no longer use that as an excuse of why you didn't want to invest in me. And then it told it, the headline was what it was. Like people like Fast Company talked to 100 of our customers. It was very clear that people liked our product when they got to know us. And that's why they did the headline. It was like, people love these guys, but this dude, like investors won't even talk to this guy.
Did you reach out to them with that story idea, or did they find you?
Oh, they found us.
That's
I
crazy.
never reach out for PR. Any PR that you see with us is never me reaching out.
Because that headline, I mean, so many founders would say, yeah, I fit the profile of that headline. And some of them would and some of them wouldn't. But it's such a powerful story that I feel like a lot of people would, if especially if it works, you'd want that to get out there.
All right.
So you got into Techstars and you dominated it. And
I was decent.
Yeah, you're decent. Just 22-year-old white boy decent. And then you went out and you actually raised some money. What did that look like?
It was an unbelievable process, right? So again, like being this guy that, the only money I've raised in the past have been from like in-kind and like friends and families that trusted me. So like now being on the other side of Techstars, showing the metrics that we were showing the growth that we were showing. And then I think what Techstars did would validate me, right? So it's like networks talk to networks, right? So it's like people like, hey, he's been in Techstars for 13 weeks. Hey, Ryan Broshar, what do you think of Clarence? And when he says, hey, man, I was with this dude for 13 weeks, one of the best founders I've ever been around, that credibility just lends itself to the raise. When we got in the raise, there was a lot of like, okay, one, you've been in Techstars, and just having that green shirt on pulls a lot of weight for a lot of people. So like conversations were a lot easier. And then when we started talking about metrics, we started talking about growth, and at the time we were growing 25% month over month, and like all this positive stuff was happening. So our raise, it took 9 weeks exactly from the time we started our raise to the time money hit the bank was 9 weeks. We could have probably raised twice the money that we raised, but we stopped because I was just like, man, I don't have to give away this equity. Mm-hmm. I don't need this much money. I think there's discipline in taking the money that you need versus the money, versus over that. And so we took exactly what we needed.
And how did you decide who to take on if you had a potential surplus in terms of VCs?
Man, it was all about relationships, right? So 2 investors actually told me no a year ago that ended up investing in our round. And I think once they got past the fact that I was a Black founder and they just gave me credit for who I was, they were 2 of the first people that came in to the round. And then it was just about like relationships, man. I was like, you do your due diligence as a founder. You're talking to other founders who've taken money from certain people. We had a guy with a $500,000 check that I called one founder, and he was like, hey, man, if you take money from this dude, like you're going to hear from him every week. It's going to be that type of relationship. And I was like, no, thank you. I don't want your money. And so I think like if you trust the network, the founder network, I started listening to, and there was a lot of money that just wasn't good money for us to take.
Well, that's all the questions that I had, Eric. Did you have anything else on the Midwest founder front or any final questions?
No, in general, that was an awesome interview. I had a lot of fun.
Great. Clarence, if people want to learn more about you or want to check out Upsie, where should they go after the show?
Yeah, so if they want to learn more about Upsie, they can just go to upsie.com, upsie.com. We also have Instagram and Twitter and a Facebook page that's just Upsie HQ. And if you want to chat with me or learn more about me, just go to my Twitter page. That's where you can reach me at. It's just Clarence_Bethea on Twitter and also on Instagram. We'd love to hear from anybody that wants to chat.
Great. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, Eric, we just spoke with Clarence Bethea, the CEO and founder of Upsie. What are we about to do here in the 3rd segment of our show?
So this is our verbal hypothetical deal memo. A deal memo is something that if Jay and I had a venture capital company or an angel investment fund, We would write up a deal memo to look at what's the upside, what's the downside of this particular opportunity. We use that to crystallize our thinking and communicate with potential investors. Jay and I don't have an angel fund or a venture capital firm, but we want to utilize this same process to understand what we just went through with the research and the interview. Jay, what am I missing?
Yes, this is made to make us smarter. This is how we can learn about the process and get better at this as we go and talk to more of these founders outside of Silicon Valley and learn about their businesses. We want to get smarter as potential investors. This is a way for us to calibrate our own thoughts. We refer back to these notes and these ideas 6 to 12 to 18 months from now and say, okay, what has Upsie gone on to accomplish? How close were we in our assumptions and our thoughts? And, how do we approach this opportunity now? Were the things that we thought were good opportunities really good opportunities? Did they transpire? Were the things that we were a little worried about? Did those things rear their head? Rear their head?
Rear their head. I
rear
believe
their
it's
head?
Rear their head. Yes.
Yeah. So this is an opportunity for us to get smarter, and we are trying to answer 4 questions, either implicitly or explicitly through this process, and those are: 1, how committed is this founder? 2, what are this founder's chances of success in this business and in life? 3, what does winning look like in terms of revenue and my return as an investor? And 4, why has this founder chosen this business? So Eric, I'm going to let you start off. Anything that stuck out to you about Clarence, the founder, or Upsie, the opportunity that you want to start with?
Well, I always like starting with the founder. So Clarence has the most unique story that we've had on the Upside podcast thus far. He came from Decatur, Georgia. He somehow ended up in Minneapolis. He was playing basketball. He was driving boom trucks. Next thing you know, he was on the red carpet. It's just like such a crazy story from the beginning to end. And through that, there was a really nice thread of kind of personally developing and caring about others. And I really like those 2 threads as they pertain to Upsie. What did you like about Clarence, the founder?
Yeah, and besides caring about others, there was a constant thread of others caring about him. We've spent a cumulative hour, maybe a little close to an hour and a half of our time with Clarence. But as you can tell, as people spend more time with Clarence, they seem to take an interest in him and see potential in him, or have historically, leading to jobs, as you said, on boom trucks or working with an elder care facility, and then the incoming CEO of Best Buy kind of taking him under his wing and the literal private jet wing to some of these places to, foster his development as an individual in business. There's a pattern here. And I know he kind of wrote off his coaches as saying, well, I was really good at basketball, so they wanted me there. But I'm sure they saw something too. So it strikes me that Clarence is a caring person. A lot of what he talked about was empowering individuals and giving them a better life through his work. He said at one point, obviously the money is cool, but that doesn't wake me up in the morning. I like this quote of, money is kind of like water in your hand. Just as quickly as you have it, you can lose it. So that's not what he's after. I think that there is, and this is obviously the thesis of Arlen at Backstage Capital and our friend Brandon with Harlem Capital Partners, folks who have had a rough go of it, normally minorities, people come from diverse backgrounds, have a special resilience to them that has been necessary to adopt to get this far. And I think that's very clear from Clarence's story and what he's accomplished to this point.
And I think, generalizing here, there's also a level of what he called bullheadedness, in that he's willing to, and maybe that goes with the resilience, but he's willing to charge ahead, almost full steam ahead, spending 3.5 years to court these insurance companies to make them sign 5-year exclusive deals with these carriers. That is, to me, extremely impressive, especially because they're so used to dealing with retailers.
Mm-hmm. I saw a strong thread of salesmanship that goes with that bullheadedness. And, when we're talking about what are the founder's chances of success in business and in life, I think the more skilled you are in selling yourself and your company and your product, the more likely you are that you're going to be successful, because you're showing both resilience through the rejection and an inability to position something in such a way that it's a win for both parties. I think that's huge. He said it early on, he learned that he could sell just by speaking to people, both at the gym and at Best Buy. So I think that's a good sign for Clarence. I want to turn my attention to the opportunity here, unless you had more on Clarence.
No, I think that the opportunity is where we should go next. Let's do it.
So in our initial research, we found that there was about a $40 billion opportunity here in the warranties industry. And Clarence sharing with us, he had spoken with an investor who said $40 billion opportunity. Small difference, small exponential difference. $40 billion opportunity in the warranties industry. And as an investor shared with him, a $40 billion market opportunity, nobody else really playing in this space. You could raise $100 million on this if you were white in Silicon Valley.
Right.
So, one, that investor seems to see the market opportunity despite not investing and being explicitly racist. And two, Clarence spoke to Upsie unlocking a larger pie with the way they lower the barrier to protecting your goods. He said he expects and believes that the industry could be $80 to $100 billion.
I want to examine two things on this. The first part is this idea of an investor explicitly saying, because you're not white and not in Silicon Valley, I won't invest. The first half of that is obviously racist, as has been demonstrated and said by both Clarence and yourself. I have a feeling, and I'm not defending this investor, but from doing a lot of reading recently, a lot of Silicon Valley investors want excessive amounts of board seats on companies that they're going to make really big bets on. And the cost of flying back and forth for board meetings, the cost of getting to the physical locations without recruiting Clarence to move to San Francisco. I've seen that on Twitter and on Medium lately as some real reasons why there is some competitive advantage for VCs in the middle of the country, and why maybe there was more of a business decision than a race-based decision. That being said, there's definitely a race component that plays into it.
So when you say making bigger bets, are you speaking to the level of risk that is perceived with this company or the amount of money that they're investing?
The amount of the fund that they're going to invest in. So if he was really serious about this being some sort of like large investment or $100 million investment or, down the road, and that's the opportunity size that he saw it, they would probably want some sort of board representation. And as that investment grows larger in size and becomes more successful, it becomes more expensive to get your professionals out to St. Paul or Minneapolis or wherever Clarence is headquartered.
That's interesting. Yeah, the cost mechanics are crazy. This is an aside. Did you ever see the headline about the founder of Bulletproof Coffee who lives in a remote area of Canada because he says he can charter a private jet to fly to Silicon Valley for his meetings cheaper than living in Silicon Valley?
I did not see that, but that is fascinating.
Hilarious. So
the second part of that, so I had two parts about what you just mentioned. The first part was related to that one encounter, and I was curious about the weight distribution between race and business decision. The second part is about this pie, this unlocking a larger pie. We talk a lot about pie here on Upside. I don't know if you noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
I like pie. Are you an apple pie guy?
I'm a pie guy more than a cake guy.
Oh, me too. I'm apple over pretty much anything else, though.
Not an apple guy, more of a cherry guy. Cherry guy and peach.
Okay, good to know. So if we just do like a little bit of basic math, right? If the pie is currently, let's just call it $100, and that's made up of $90 of profit and $10 of cost, and Clarence wants to eat the whole pie. He wants to take the whole pie, right? And instead of having $90 of profit, he's going to have $20 of profit and $10 of cost. Well, the pie has just shrunk from $100 to $30. So maybe that $40 billion market is much smaller as it currently exists, and the value has to be greater than the current profit that Clarence is operating in plus the cost.
You're saying, okay, I see what you're saying. You're tying this back to the Upsie business model, saying that right now the $40 billion market is that way because people are grossly overcharging for warranties.
Right.
And Clarence, in trying to eat the entire pie, is actually starting by shrinking that pie.
Correct. And he had the business model to get back to that $40 billion valuation for this space is precluded on many more people signing up to have stuff protected on Upsie. So it's a quantity play. And I think this gets into Clarence's kind of vision for this, which is we want to protect everything in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point to bring forward, is saying, yeah, that's an interesting sleight of hand I almost looked by, because he's saying that there's sometimes a 900% upcharge on these things, $450 warranties for something that's costing $5 from the carrier, and he's eating that margin. He's eating someone else's pie by existing. Oh man, this is getting abstract. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So for him to actually get up to that higher total market cap, he's going to have many, many more people come into this.
Which is inherently growing or changing consumer behavior. So he said
5% right now.
Yeah, 5% of people. So you need to expand that incrementally to make this kind of work, which I think it could do, because when things get cheaper, I mean, just basic supply and demand. The question is, what are the elasticities and inelasticities? How much more likely are people to sign up for an iPhone protection if it is $80 versus Apple Care of $450 or whatever it is for 2 years?
And I think that consumer behavior change is easier to see happen when you're basically saying one service is protecting all of your things. So you're not trying to find all these different services to change your behavior. You're just choosing this one, which is costing a lot of money in marketing spend. He has 3 buckets in his customer acquisition strategy right now: digital with Google AdWords, influencer marketing, and a referral program, all of which costs them capital to get going. But he does say that despite being a B2C company with high marketing costs, their CAC to LTV is 3.5 to 1.
So it was really interesting because...
Sorry, 1 to 3.5.
Yes. So he calls it CAC to LTV. I've always read it LTV to CAC. Doesn't really matter which way, but throughout the interview, I believe that it was CAC to LTV, and he said 3.5. So I think I understood it, but that might have been a little bit confusing to the listener. So just wanted to clear that up here. It means the lifetime value of bringing on a customer is 3.5 times the value of the cost of acquisition of that customer. So if I wanted to bring Jay on and it cost me $10 to market to Jay, well, over the course of the time that Jay is a customer of whatever business I have, he'll bring in $35 of revenue to me.
Yeah. And I gotta compliment you here, Eric. You hit him with a lot of numbers questions. We got a lot of good data here. He talked about that CAC to LTV ratio being a major KPI for him. He talked to loss ratio, which he explained a loss ratio to us. I hadn't really understood that before. Industry average is 98 cents per dollar coming out. And for Upsie right now, they're running at 27 cents per dollar, which is a lot of additional float. Insurance companies make a lot of their money on float. That's what our boy Warren kind of made his pie on, right?
That is what he built the foundation of Berkshire Hathaway on when he bought Geico stock in, I want to say 68 or something like that, and realized that he could invest the float better than anyone else. So a little bit of background here. I won't take this on too much of a tangent, but Clarence said that they're expecting to make 3 to 5% on their float. Warren Buffett looked at this and said, I can make 11%. Why wouldn't I do that? Obviously a little bit of arrogance there, but it worked out for him in the long term because he did make like 19% a year.
Crazy. Okay, so let's try to bring all of this together, these things that we're talking about. The fact that you would have to change consumer behavior, drastically increase the number of people who are utilizing warranties to make this work. Something that I'm looking out for, whether it's 6 to 18 months or just in general for Upsie, I think it's super smart that they have locked a carrier into a 5-year exclusive. I mean, that was our biggest question from the upfront, was how do they prevent knockoffs, and then also how do they prevent these retailers from slimming their own margins down? Both questions he answered, I thought, very, very well. With as a recap, for companies like Best Buy, they're incentivized not to bring their margin down because that's where they make the majority of their profits. And if they eat that margin, it's going to have a hit on their public stock. SquareTrade, a competitor to Upsie, works directly through those retailers. And so they can't really offer lower either because of essentially the same problem. So the threat to me would be if a copycat came in and either found a carrier that was willing to offer similar terms to the one that Upsie has, or if that 5-year exclusive is up and someone else jumps on it and somehow makes a run at it 5 years behind. What are your thoughts there? Are you concerned about that? Do you think that's a viable moat?
I think that you are looking at a really deep moat from both the retail perspective and potential copycat perspective. Looking just at the sales funnel, it's going to be very hard, and they probably have a 3.5-year lead time until another competitor gets up to the same level as Upsie. So they have the benefit of establishing themselves in the market over those 3.5 years. One thing that I did want to mention as a awesome opportunity to grow this customer behavior, user behavior, is the ubiquity of smartphones and the general consumer distaste for smartphone insurance. I don't think you see very many people leaving positive reviews about insuring their smartphones, about paying for Apple Care. It's generally complaints about X, Y, and Z. And I think that that's a really good intro into the market because it's their lowest margin product. It makes up 50% of their product mix, and it leads them to higher margin products down the road, such as their consumer electronics, their appliances, and their lawn and garden. And if you're going to change user behavior, you need to start with a really ubiquitous idea, and everyone has smartphones now.
Yep, I'm with you. So I'd like to transition into our final question here. What are you excited about or looking for from Upsie 6 to 18 months from now?
The thing I'm probably most excited about with Upsie and with learning about is their data analytics. And I don't know the KPI that I would pick to say, this is what I want to see in 6 to 18 months. If they can sustain aggressive user growth while maintaining the same LTV to CAC ratio, I'll know that they're using their data analytics very effectively. So maybe that would be something that I wanted to look at is LTV to CAC, maybe even divided by user growth or something like that, where there's some sort of compound ratio bringing those two together.
I think the opportunity for data is really, really interesting. When he talks about, we know that 75% of the time when somebody buys a washer and dryer, they end up buying a laptop afterwards. I wonder how much of that is correlation versus causation. And, I think they'll get better at predicting those things and separating those two. But in theory, like the data analytics here available to understand consumer behavior towards what they're purchasing next becomes a very valuable piece of data. Very valuable for targeted ads for those brands and retailers, right?
And for expanding their services. So he mentioned the opportunity to get into airfare or travel. Well, if you can get someone in the door with a smartphone contract and then make it super easy for them to, no matter what they buy, protect it. Once they have that account on Upsie, I feel like the upselling on Upsie is maybe the easier funnel.
Nerdy product thing. I would love for Upsie to integrate with my Gmail app so that it sees, hey, you just made a purchase. I read this receipt. Do you want to cover it for this amount of money? Could be great because there's going to be so much stuff that I would purchase that I wouldn't even think that Upsie could cover if they're getting into new coverages. And so that little reminder would be appreciated and fine with me. I'm with you on all of that. CAC to LTV. I'm interested to see if that 27-cent loss ratio is panning out. I have to think that's going to raise, but it won't necessarily raise to 98 cents. It could still be a big win, but I want to see, as more time passes, where does that stand? Also interested to see if there are any serious competitors that come in from some angle we weren't expecting that's a threat.
I agree. I'm really bullish on Upsie in general, and I look forward to checking back in 6 to 18 months to see if we were looking at the right stuff.
All right. Yep. Me too. Thanks for listening, guys. If you have thoughts on this episode, if you have thoughts on Upsie, tweet at us at UpsideFM or email us hello@upside.fm. We would really appreciate a review on iTunes if you're enjoying this episode. The ratings and reviews on iTunes go a long way in helping us bring in high quality guests to the show. So we'll be talking to you guys next week. Talk to you then. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's guest. So shoot us an email at hello@upside.fm or find us on Twitter at UpsideFM. We'll be back here next week at the same time talking to another founder in our quest to find upside outside of Silicon Valley.
If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please email us or find us on Twitter and let us know. And if you love our show, please leave us a review on iTunes. That goes a long way in helping us spread the word and continue to help bring high-quality guests to the show. Eric and I decided there were a couple things we wanted to share with you at the end of the podcast, and so here we go. Eric Hornung and Jay Klaus are the founding parties of the Upside podcast. At the time of this recording, we do not own equity or other financial interest in the companies which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinion and do not reflect the opinions of Duff & Phelps LLC and its affiliates, Unreal Collective LLC and its affiliates, or any entity which employ us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. We have not considered your specific financial situation nor provided any investment advice on this show. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Never mind, bro, that can't be matched. I'm lighting it on fire, used to run victory laps, and still I'm not even tired. It's all about the timing, yeah, that's what they say. Well, I'ma keep on